All right, if you're in retail, you know the feeling. Your system says you have 10 of something, but you look at the shelf and there are only 8. That tiny mismatch, it's the start of some serious chaos. So today we're going to build a rock-solid step-by-step process in QuickBooks POS to get your inventory count perfect every single time.
So, let me just ask you straight up. Are you 100% confident that what your system says you have is what's actually on your shelf? You know, if you hesitated for even a second, you're definitely not alone. But that little bit of doubt can cause huge problems. We're talking financial errors, ordering nightmares, and just total operational chaos. The good news is, it really doesn't have to be that way.
Look, the solution here isn't some kind of magic trick. It's a procedure. It's a simple, structured process that, if you just follow it every single time, makes errors pretty much impossible. By the time we're done here, you're going to have a system that makes your inventory data something you can actually trust.
So here's how we're going to break it down. First, we'll talk a little about the chaos that bad data causes. Then, we're going to lay down the fundamental rules you have to live by. From there, we'll do a step-by-step for recording losses and then another for gains. And we'll wrap it all up by talking about the discipline it takes to make this system stick.
Okay, first things first, let's just set the stage. When your inventory count is off, everything is off. Seriously, your financial reports are basically fiction, you end up ordering stock you don't need, or worse, run out of your best sellers. You just can't make smart decisions. That's why accuracy isn't just some nice to have, it's literally the foundation of a healthy retail business.
All right, let's get into the fix. Before you even think about touching the keyboard, you need to get these core principles down. Think of these as the unbreakable rules of the road that are going to support your entire system for inventory integrity.
There are 2 critical things you've got to set up in QuickBooks before you do anything else. First, you need to create a special vendor in your system called Loss Store. It's easy. Just go to your vendor list, hit Add New, name it Loss Store, and save. That's it. Second, you have to lock this down. Only specific people like managers or inventory supervisors should have the permissions to make these kinds of adjustments.
Okay, these are the 4 golden rules. They're non-negotiable, and they're what makes this whole thing work. Rule 1, segregation. Losses and gains are always handled in separate transactions. You never ever mix them. Rule 2, always use receiving vouchers for these adjustments. No exceptions. Rule 3, every adjustment has to be tied to that special loss store vendor we just talked about. And finally, Rule 4, use a clear nomenclature or naming system. CL for losses, CG for gains. You follow these 4 rules, you'll have a perfect audit trail every time. Now, that first rule, segregation, is absolutely the most important one. I want you to think of it this way. Losses and gains live in 2 completely different universes. Loss vouchers are for missing items, and they use negative numbers. Gain vouchers are for items you found, and they use positive numbers. They are never on the same document. That separation is the absolute key to keeping your data clean and trustworthy.
Okay, enough with the theory. Let's get practical and see exactly how this works. We're going to start with a scenario you'll probably run into the most: recording inventory losses, shrinkage, with total precision. Let's walk through the exact workflow for a loss. So you'll start a new receiving voucher by going to Receive Items. Now, the most important part here is you have to select our special loss store vendor. Then, for the invoice number, you're going to use our naming rule. Start it with CL for cost of loss. After that, it's pretty straightforward. You list the items that are missing, you enter the quantities, and you save. That's the whole process.
And listen, this is the part you can't get wrong. The quantity must be a negative number. If you're missing 5 items, you enter -5. This is exactly what tells QuickBooks to reduce your on-hand count and adjust the cost correctly.
Now, let's talk about the opposite and, slightly happier scenario, finding extra inventory that you didn't even know you had. The process is almost identical to what we just did, but there's one really critical difference.
The great thing here is that the process for gains is almost exactly the same, which is what makes this system so easy to learn. You still go to Receive Items, you still select that loss store vendor. The only thing that changes is the invoice number. This time, you'll start it with CG for cost of gain.
And you guessed it, here's the flip side. For a gain, the quantity is always positive. You found 2 extra, you just enter a +2. This is what correctly increases your inventory count in the system. Simple as that.
So we've gone through all the rules and the step-by-step process, but I want to wrap this up by framing it as something more than just a list of tasks. This is really about discipline. It's about protecting the health and the integrity of your business's most valuable data.
You know, the source material that this whole process is based on has a line in it that just says it all. Violating this rule corrupts the integrity of your tracking. Just think about that word for a second, corrupts. It's not just a simple mistake. When you make losses and gains on one voucher, you fundamentally break your ability to see what's really going on. You undermine the entire system.
Following these steps is a guarantee of accuracy. It gives you a crystal clear, auditable trail for every single item that enters or leaves your inventory outside of a normal sale. So, the final question isn't whether or not this procedure works, because it absolutely does. The real question is this: is your team trained? Are they empowered? And are they ready to implement this discipline?